My husband and I hiked the approach trail to Springer Mountain several years back, planning to summit and return to the bottom and camp. It's summer, like 90 degrees, and besides a few trail runners early in the day, we really see no one else. It takes a few hours longer than we anticipated, and we are beat. Also, because of the way my leggings rubbed, I have the worst chafing imaginable and just do not want to hike down again. We set up to cook dinner, and a man comes from the opposite direction toward the summit. My husband strikes up a conversation, and the man agrees to give us a ride back to the park where we started. We throw our packs into his trunk, but I keep my cell phone in hand, even though it is nearly dead and I have no signal. The guy had said he knew the way to the park and could get us back quickly. But then suddenly he has taken a wrong turn, and now he has to turn around. Something about his story does not add up during the entire ride. He says his wife is in labor with their first child, but he had to get away for a bit, take a hike to clear his mind, etc. Okay, whatever. Maybe he is nervous, it happens. He just kind of rambles about weird things and then realizes, oh wait, I've taken another wrong turn. We turn onto a road and there is this old house and he wants us to get out and look at it. Won't take no for an answer. Then it gets really weird. He asks if he can take pictures of us in front of this house, standing on the porch, sitting. He is in full photo shoot mode. I want you to look happy. Now I want you to look angry, etc. We get back to the car. I'm thoroughly creeped out. He is Sheldon Cooper in Ted Bundy form. He tells my husband that his car is running hot and needs some water to cool it down. He has some in the trunk if my husband wouldn't mind getting it for him. I instinctively hop out with my husband because no way am I getting left in this car if the guy is trying to split us up. We put the water in and away we go. I am telling my husband in the car how we had to meet so and so tomorrow morning. We made plans. Whatever I can just so this man takes the hint that someone knows where we are and had plans to see us the next day our location was known. Exact plans were not to anyone but us. We weren't meeting anyone. I am fantastically relieved when I finally see that we are finally nearing where we park our car in the park. When we finally find it, this man will not leave while we are putting our packs and things into the car, asking our plans, etc. He asks for my phone number and I give it to him off by one digit. I tell my husband to go into the hotel and get us a room for the night so that we can rest. Our plan is to actually wait until he is gone and we will get a campsite. The man says, well, they have a really great dinner. I will follow you inside and see about that. I lock myself in the car and my husband delivers some spiel to the desk attendant about us needing to book a campsite. Something. Can we drive around and look for an empty one? He was feeling extremely skeptical about the situation too. His plan was to say we were booking a site, wait for this guy to leave, and return to the hotel later where the guy wouldn't know our room or anything. We drive to the farthest lowest point of the campground and sit for nearly 2 hours. It's getting dark. We are tired. We finally decide to drive through the camping area and to the hotel. Surely this guy has gone. As we drive past the tents, we see his car just sitting and waiting where he has full view of the camping area, but can also see the hotel parking. My husband pulls a U-turn and we book it nearly 2 hours from the park and find the worst, cheapest hotel. To this day, we swear that we dodged a bullet. This man could have committed the nearly perfect crime if he had picked us up from the top of the mountain and we just never returned to our car. The fact that he was waiting on us when we returned sealed it for us that this guy really had some major, horrible plan for us in mind. No, we did not call police to report the incident. We had no cell service where we were, and our main priority was to get where we started and then to put distance between ourselves and this man. That is my single biggest regret in the whole matter, but it was just not in my mind at the time. By the time we had driven from the state park at Amicalola, it was late, and we were exhausted. I no longer have the phone that I had then, but I do have several photos from this trip. I know that he was wandering around the summit as we were taking pictures at the top, and I also have a picture of the house, because when he said that we had taken a wrong turn again, I was going to attempt to GPS us back to the park. It is highly possible that there were pictures of his car and or him. A few summers ago, me and a few buddies went catfishing at a local reservoir. This is rural Ohio, and the reservoir was off a dirt road about 2 miles from the village it fed, which was a village of about 1,500 people. We had fished this spot tons of times, and we very rarely saw other people during the day, and we never saw anyone out there at night. So the day we went out, it was about 9 p.m., sun's going down. We had a couple cases of beer. We were planning on staying out until the sun came back up. We didn't want to be bothered. We weren't really allowed to have alcohol around the reservoir anyway, so we actually drove a dirt service road clear around the reservoir as far away as we could get from the road in. This service road was nothing but compacted dirt, with tree roots running across it, areas that had washed away during flooding, fallen trees in the road that had been there for years, etc. This was not a well-traveled road, and the only way we got around it was that we all had lifted for trucks or jeeps. The site we pick is out on a piece of land that stretches out into the water a bit in a teardrop kind of shape, goes maybe 20 feet out into the reservoir. So we have water on all sides of us besides our back. We figure we can fish from different directions. Since we will have 5 or 6 poles in the water, it would give us a little more room to cast without tangling lines. Plus, there was remnants of a fire pit and some wood that was already collected. So we start a fire, bait our poles, and start drinking. We fish for 2 or 3 hours and get good and drunk. In the meantime, a thick summer fog creeps in across the lake. Then we hear a huge kersploosh and we see the ripples coming from across the lake to our right. There's maybe 50 yards of water between us and the other bank, and the fog was so thick we could not see the bank or what caused the sound, but we could see the ripples in the water once they got to us. We explain it away to a tree limb falling in the water, or maybe a beaver jumping off the bank. Do beavers jump? And we keep fishing. About 20 minutes later, another huge kersploosh, and the ripples come again. And let me tell you, there was no mistaking the sound. It was not a fish flopping, and it was not a frog jumping in the water. It was the sound of a large heavy object. Like the sound someone makes when they do a cannonball off the diving board. But we explain it away as we did with the first. Shortly after that, we run out of wood for the fire. So we leave one guy to watch the poles. Me and a few buddies go out into the brush to find fallen sticks and whatnot. We all go our separate ways and meet back at the fire shortly after. One of my buddies comes back to the fire with a white jacket, a pair of rubber boots, and a clown mask in his arms. This was about the time when there were all the posts about the scary clowns who would lurk around towns to scare people. I knew those stories were bullshit, so I figured it was just left over from dumbass kids who had a party out there one night and left it. So we get the fire going again. We fish for a little while longer when we hear twigs breaking in the woods across the lake, and then another huge kersploosh. At this point, we know there is someone out there with us, and the sound has to be someone dropping something in the lake. So we call out like, "Hey, if there is someone out there, we aren't making trouble, just fishing and drinking some beers. We'd be happy to have you join us." Dead silence. So we call out again and again, to no response. A couple of my buddies are seriously freaking out at this point between the booze, the clown mask, the fog, and the mystery noises. So I get that drunk courage, you know the kind, and I decide we should all go walk around the bend and see just what the fuck's going on. This guy's being a fucking asshole and trying to scare us. I convince 2 of my buddies to come with me, and the other 2 guys watch the poles dot, so we 3 trek into the brush with our flashlights, make our way through the thick as fog, start working around this lake, and as we go, we start finding bits of trash and saplings that had been cut down, and then more trash, and then footprints of someone in their bare feet, which is odd since it was so much work to get back to this spot on the lake. No one would be hiking around this far around the lake to fish in this spot. As I'm sweeping the woods with my flashlight, I walk over the crest of a hill, and not 10 feet in front of my face is a tent. This tent had been here for a long time. There was moss growing on the sides of it, and there was trash and shit thrown all around this campsite. Most concerning, though, was the pile of propane tanks. There had to have been 15 or 20 of those 5-gallon propane tanks. So we all looked at each other, and I said, "Welp, I guess this is none of my business." And we hurriedly made our way back to the fire, threw all of our shit in the back of the trucks, and made our way out of there in a hurry. On the way out from around the lake, we pull onto the main dirt road and pass a shitty little Toyota Camry with 5 dudes in it. Watching in the rear view, they pull onto the service road we just left out of. So, for those that aren't savvy to rural southern Ohio and haven't figured it out, 5 drunk idiots went out to a local backwoods receiver to catfish and busted a meth lab in the middle of the woods. The owner of said meth lab tried to scare them away by throwing propane tanks in the lake. I can only assume that when throwing shit in the lake didn't scare us away, the meth cook called some of his buddies to scare us out. Or worse yet, the meth cook called his buddies after we saw his operation, in which case, I'm glad we got out of there before they showed up. My senior year of high school, I went on a hunting trip out into the middle of the Arizona desert with my dad and 2 of his cop buddies, co-workers. My dad and I had a large tent with a divider that we were sharing, and his 2 friends had a similar setup about 20 feet away from our tent. Throughout the campsite, we had a fire pit, ice chests, etc., etc., etc. Well, the morning of the second day, my father told us he woke up at approximately 3 a.m. because he heard someone very slowly and methodically walking through camp, occasionally fidgeting with some of the things in the camp. He knew it wasn't me, and it wasn't either of his friends with us. He could hear both of them snoring quite loudly and confirmed with them they didn't get up to go to the bathroom or what have you. We were in the absolute middle of nowhere. Nearest civilization was an hour-and-a-half drive away. He laid in the tent, listening to whoever this was walking through the camp for a good 15 minutes before they eventually left. He said he had this absolutely terrifying sense of dread during this entire situation and didn't dare call out or do anything. He just listened as some stranger walked through camp in the middle of nowhere. My dad has been a cop for well over 25 years, and he's seen some really rough shit over the years, but he says those 15 minutes and the hours after that was the most terrified he's ever been in his life. Me and some friends decided to go camping in Arkansas and spend a day on the river. Our 8-hour float trip turned into 14 hours because of distractions and caves and all kinds of fun, but we were all utterly wiped by the time we got back to the campsite. 2 of the guys take off, leaving me and my ex along with my buddy and his wife. We still had a few hours before sunset, so I decided to take a nap. While I was napping, a canoe with a drunk man and a woman floated by. The drunk guy was catcalling the girls, and he accidentally flipped over the canoe. This sent the dude into a rage, and he blamed the girl who was with him, so he threw her bag out of the canoe and left her there on the shore by our campsite and continued down the river. About 20 minutes later, I woke up and was filled in on the details when I noticed a young woman wandering around the empty campground. See, we took our float trip in late August. School had already started, but the weather was still nice. We were the only people at our campsite, and the campsite was a few miles from the nearest house and several more miles away from the nearest town. Pretty desolate location at the time. I felt bad for the girl, so me and my buddy hopped in the car and asked if she needed help. She was hysterical. She had no idea where she was at, and she didn't have a cell phone. All she had were her boyfriend's truck keys, but she knew what town about 25 minutes drive away she was parked in and where. My buddy decided to drop her off while I stayed with the girls and got dinner ready. He actually made it there and back pretty quick since we had driven through that town on the way to our campsite, so he knew where to go. A little after dinner and about an hour after sunset, we could hear voices coming up the river, and I knew we were going to have trouble. The girl's drunk boyfriend and 2 even drunker male friends were using their cell phones as flashlights and walking up the bank of the river yelling out this girl's name. I have long since forgotten what it was. As soon as they saw our fire, the only light for miles around, they came up and threw the rest of my gathered firewood onto the fire so they could warm up. The drunk boyfriend then told us a lie about his girlfriend getting mad and jumping out of his canoe and taking his keys. He then demanded that we let him use our phone. I lied and told him our phones were wet and taken apart drying in a bag of rice. He ignored me and asked again, being real sure to smile and be nice. I again told him no, that the phones weren't working. I know this doesn't sound all that threatening, but all three of these dudes were drunk and aggressive, and everything was super tense. I know if they had found that girl out in the dark, things would have become violent. It was going to rain that night, but we had decided to camp through the rain because of how tired we all were. But I got my buddy to help me start packing up our tents and gear into my car when the three dudes decided to sit around the fire and warm up while flirting with our girlfriends. The girls knew what was up and kept talking to the guys while we packed. I have never packed up a campsite so quickly in my life. In about 15 minutes, I had both tents and all of our gear, as well as for kayaks in the trunk or strapped to the roof of my car. Soon as I gave the word, the girls jumped in and we followed. It wasn't until then that the guys realized what was happening and that we were leaving them, but they bolted towards the car and tried to box us in. I swerved around and the main drunk guy began screaming obscenities at us. That he was gonna fucking kill us and that he hoped our babies would die. Really bizarre, violent shit. I had to pull back around the campsite to leave, and as I did I slowed down and rolled my window down a bit, and the guy relaxed and stopped yelling. I think he thought I was going to give him my phone or stop, but I just wanted to tell him that we had in fact seen his girlfriend, and that we had given her a ride to his truck hours ago, and that she had left their asses behind. Then I sped away. Camping at 16 with just my mom and dog. Sleeping Bear Dunes in Michigan, in a state park that is very much off the beaten path. It's been a long day. We had been shore fishing for most of it. I have bad allergies. I'm allergic to cedar, but as long as I take a Benadryl, I'm good to go. As long as I don't rub up on leaves or trees. I get horrible hives. I make a mistake earlier in the day and grab a big chunk of it. So ends the fishing trip and we hike back to camp, my hand an itchy red swollen mess, but nothing too concerning. We make a fire, fry our fish. State park is maybe half full. On our battery radio we hear there's a tornado watch. Mom and I are tent camping, so we pack the majority of our shit inside the canvas tent, drive the stakes deep with spikes of wood, secure a few tarps around it. You bury them in the dirt around the tent after you've covered it to prevent wind from getting up under the flaps and carrying it away, and anchor it to the berm we were next to. We got in the van, ate our dinner, and hung our trash in a tree. Crazy storm, wind whipping trees around so hard they're bending low, screeching against the van and making my dog whimper. It was a long night. We fell asleep after the worst of it, and the tornado watch, which had turned into a warning, had passed. I got up to pee when it was close to dawn, dropped my drawers and squatted. Mid-piss I sneeze, and hear, bless you. What the fuck? It's dark and raining. Sounds are muted in the forest in the rain, it's the loudest thing you hear. I freaked the fuck out and dove back into the van and locked the doors. Woke up to birds chirping, sun shining, and our tent, completely outfitted with cedar. I mean, it looked like a miniature cabin. All side walls had about 50 pieces of wood leaned up against them, and a flat large piece in front of the tent flap. We are pretty unnerved, so we walk down to the ranger station. He comes back with us, takes a few pictures, and helps us disassemble it. We had to move it, the piece blocking the door asterisk, with a tarp to get it out of the way. It was fucking heavy and took all three of us to drag it. Apparently, there's a homeless guy who likes to ransack campsites at night who runs around the area. He must have been watching me piss. The ranger thought he'd tried to fortify our tent from the storm, and I'd startled him. Fucking creepy. We never saw him. Every single branch was from a cedar tree. We were in a pine grove.